Just about every month I'm testing a new camera, but the months that I get an action camera are by far my favorite. Anything for the Verge.
Mic check, 1, 2 to the 3. Tell me who the illest on the MIC.
Come on, do it again. All right, we are headed up into Prospect Park because I shot all of the test footage on the HERO9 in nature, and tonally, my apartment's just not gonna cut it. Rolling on camera. Whew, let's do it. The GoPro HERO9. It is more robust in almost every single way. It's got a bigger battery, a bigger body, it's got bigger, badder photo and video resolutions, and for the first time ever, it comes in a reusable case that is completely plastic-free, which honestly, thank God, I love to see that. But first bigger thing, its actual physical size. It is noticeably larger than last year's HERO8. A bit thicker, a bit wider, a bit taller, and this never got in the way of where I wanted to mount it or how it felt to carry it around. And it still has the same size dual mounting prongs for use with all previous action camera mounts you might have. With the larger size comes a larger back touchscreen too. It's 2.27 inches diagonally. It has that same USB-C, micro SD card slot and battery compartment on one side, along with the start-stop button up on the top and the power and mode button on the side. Underneath the mode button, there's also this like weird latch looking piece that I really thought was removable. It is not. GoPro explained that this is a drain mic. Basically, it's the first mic to drain of water when you go from being underwater to above water, so you can get that sweet underwater to above water audio switch done quicker. How'd you do it? Tech is a tool, and I certainly treat it as such. And within my 2 weeks of using the HERO9 and absolutely not going easy on it, there's no scratches or dings to be found. Overall, the fear of breaking this camera is just non-existent. If the lens were to get scratched though, GoPro brought back a feature that the 8 didn't have, but the 7 did, and well, I missed it on the 8. A removable lens cover. I think this creates a much better way of mounting ND filters and lens mods, which I'll get to in a little bit. But unfortunately, if you have ND filters for the HERO7, they will not fit on the HERO9. There's no backwards compatibility here. Okay, and the next bigger thing, which also comes in the hardware department, and my favorite new feature to the HERO9 is this front screen. I would say 80% of the time when I'm using a GoPro, I am facing the front of the camera when framing the shot, which leads to my favorite tradition of shooting with a GoPro, and that's what I call the GoPro face. It's like that first frame that you get when you click record and you're like still kind of like hoping that the shot is like framed well. If you shoot on a GoPro, you know what I mean. I'm usually putting the camera in a location that I can't get behind to see the frame, and I'll be honest with you, it takes too much time still for me to pull out my phone, to check the frame, to make sure it's all good, and I always just kind of risk it. But with having a front-facing screen, I can actually see my frame while mounting the camera, and that is huge. Like, dudes, I cannot stress this enough, that is huge. And the Osmo Action had this, and I loved it on that camera, and I'm just so happy to see it come to GoPro's line. Within the settings menu, you can also change the screen ratio of the front screen, what information it displays, or toggle it on and off. There's a bit of a lag on that front screen when you're recording, but otherwise the colors are vivid and I was able to see all of the information I needed, such as battery life and card space, very clearly. With more screens though, comes more power use. So GoPro bumped up the battery from 1220 milliamp hours on the HERO8 to 1720 milliamp hours on the HERO9. For heavy use, 2 batteries will still be needed to get through a full day, much like on the HERO8. But during my very chill vacation days when I was only turning it on to use it and then turning it right off and really only watching playback once I was back at the cabin at night, I was able to get through 1 day on 1 battery, which is right on par with the HERO8. Oh, and I also always had both the front and back screens on because why not? Okay, the next bigger thing, resolution. This camera's 20 megapixel sensor can record in, all right, here we go. 5K 30/24, 4K 60/30/24, 2.7K 120 60/30/24, 1080 240 120 60/30/24. Wowie, it's almost too many options. Like, I just don't think I could possibly use all of those, but I'm sure there is a use case for every single one. Now, at 5K, that's new, and it is crisp. Personally, I dig the GoPro color option that is super punchy in the saturation and keeps a high level of contrast, and pair those vibrant colors with the amazing in-camera stabilization, and bingo bango, you have some really nice looking footage that if you're outputting in 4K, you can even punch in and reframe a little bit with. And speaking of stabilization, there is even a bigger, I guess, more robust Hypersmooth 3.0 as opposed to the 2.0 that we had in the 8. And it's still incredible. I mean, I am constantly impressed with Hypersmooth. And new this year is an in-camera horizontal leveling option when shooting the linear frame, which is a bit cropped in from the wide frame. To a point, this keeps the horizon level on the screen straight out of the camera. There's also a new duration capture and a schedule capture mode for time lapses, and also a hindsight mode, which can save the last 15 or 30 seconds of video that happened before you hit the shutter button. Now, the one kind of downside to this is that it does run the battery down just a bit more because technically the camera is constantly recording.
God, it's perfect out.
It's beautiful. The photos from the 20 megapixel sensor are pretty good, and I was a bit disappointed with the speed at which the HDR photos need to process, and I was not overly impressed with how the shadows are brought up to a bit of extreme levels in HDR mode, in my personal opinion, but with the HDR turned off, the photos are punchy, they're bright, and they're crisp. The next step would truly be adding an astrophotography mode to this thing. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, GoPro. Last but not least, GoPro is releasing some mods with the Hero9, and more specifically, the Max Lens mod. Now, last spring they released a media mod for the Hero 8, which had a directional mic on it, had HDMI port on it, it even had like a cold shoe mount on it, which is really cool, and they're gonna have one of those for the Hero9 as well, but for the first time ever, they're releasing a lens mod, and that's this Max Lens mod that I currently can't get the case off of. Hold on. Yeah, okay. There it is. Anyway, this creates a little bit wider frame on your Hero9, and it also allows for complete horizontal leveling no matter the orientation of the camera, because it creates a spherical image onto the sensor. Now, with that, you can only record up to 2.7K, which is a bit of a downfall, but if I'm being honest, my favorite use case of this mod was putting it on the Hero9 and not telling the Hero9 that I put it on, and then it created this like awesome circle image that looked like a, you know, OG fisheye look. Oh, I feel like I'm in a music video. Good morning, buds. This video goes live in 24 hours, and I just got the final firmware for the GoPro Hero9. What you've been seeing from the Hero9 is pre-production firmware. So let's go out and shoot. So right on, yeah. GoPro claims that this latest version of firmware has some crisper image quality, it has improved exposure, and then it also improved touch sensitivity. I found those all to be true. Footage looks great, camera's super touch responsive, and the image is of course hella crisp. So yeah, firmware looks good, GoPro. So the Hero9, wowie. I mean, they brought back the removable lenses and they're rolling out mods. It's got a bigger battery, larger sensor. It does 5K video, and most importantly, they finally made the front screen useful. But for all of these big improvements, there is a bigger price tag. It's available today starting at $449 or $349 on GoPro's website when you also purchase a 1-year subscription to GoPro Plus. Now, in my mind, $449 is still a reasonable price for bigger everything. Sure, you can grab the Hero 8 Black for $350 or DJI's Osmo Action for $250, but neither of those cameras can shoot at 5K. And then there's Insta360's 1R with that 1-inch sensor mod for $500. But that's $50 more expensive, and I prefer the color that the GoPro puts out. Add that all up, and well, the biggest, baddest action camera in the game right now, I think it's the GoPro Hero9. Is the GoPro back on top in terms of action cameras? Is it the king again? Let me know down below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's officially September. We are gonna have so much coming your way, so be sure to tune in and check it all out. And okay, bye buds.